If you're here, maybe your mind needs a place to rest. So let's slow down together, just you, me, the rain, and a story that asks for nothing in return. But before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button. By the way, what time is it where you are right now? The umbrella left in the cafe. There's a corner booth at the back of the cafe I go to, tucked beside the tall window, just left of the bookshelf no one really touches anymore. It's not particularly special. The table wobbles a little, and the cushion on one side has a threadbare patch where the vinyl has split, but it's quiet. And the light that comes through the window in the late afternoon has a kind of softness that makes everything feel just a little farther from the world. That's where I first noticed the umbrella, a navy one, neatly rolled, with a wooden curved handle and a few raindrops still clinging to its surface like it had only just been set down. It was leaning against the inside of the booth, like whoever left it there had meant to come back, but no one did. Not that afternoon, not that evening. I watched the staff as they cleaned up, half expecting someone to pick it up and place it in the back, or call out to a customer they thought might have forgotten it, but no one seemed to notice. The cafe closed at 7, and when I passed by on my walk home later that night, the light inside was off, but the umbrella was still there, propped quietly in the corner like a small, patient guest waiting to be remembered. The next Wednesday, there was another. Not the same one. This one was deep red, almost maroon, with a straight black handle and a tear along one of the folds. Again, no one claimed it. Again, no one moved it. I asked the barista that time, a soft-spoken guy named Mark, who always seemed more interested in arranging the pastry display than making conversation if they had a lost and found. He glanced over at the booth and shrugged, wiping his hands on a towel. "People leave all kinds of things," he said. "Usually we just let them sit for a few days. If they don't come back, someone takes them eventually." But that one stayed too. The following week, a third umbrella appeared, bright yellow with white stripes, almost cheerful in a way that didn't match the gray outside. And then I started to wonder, why always Wednesdays? Why always the same booth? There was never anyone sitting there when I arrived, never anyone rushing in at the last minute to claim what they'd left behind. Just the umbrella, waiting, as if placed intentionally, as if it were meant to be seen. The next Wednesday, I arrived at the cafe almost an hour earlier than usual. I told myself it was because I had a lighter workload that day, or that I needed a change of routine, but if I was being honest, I'd started to feel drawn to that corner booth in a way I couldn't quite explain. There was something about the quiet repetition of it, the gentle mystery that had settled into my thoughts like the echo of a song you don't remember learning. The staff barely looked up. As I entered, I was a familiar shape to them by now, always alone, always with a book I never quite finished, always ordering the same tea and sitting in the same place. But that afternoon, I chose a different spot, still close to the window but with a clear view of the corner booth. I didn't want to disturb anything. I just wanted to see. It was a slow day, a few couples, a woman with a laptop and headphones, a man in a suit flipping through a newspaper. But the booth stayed empty. Time passed in that slow cafe way, where the clink of spoons and the low hum of conversation fill the space like warm water. I let my tea cool without touching it, watching the light shift on the tabletop, wondering if this would be the day I'd finally catch someone slipping in and leaving the umbrella behind. But the hours passed, and no one did. Not until just before 5, when the door opened and a breeze moved through the room, carrying the faintest scent of wet pavement. A woman stepped inside, older, maybe late 60s, hair pinned up loosely, wearing a long gray coat and holding a dark green umbrella already closed. She looked around, not hurried, not lost, and walked slowly toward the counter. She didn't seem to notice me. I watched as she ordered something small, just a coffee, black, and when Mark handed it to her, she gave him a quiet thank you and turned and headed directly to the corner booth. My heart moved a little in my chest, not fast, but with that quiet rhythm that comes when something you've wondered about suddenly becomes real. She sat carefully, placed the umbrella beside her, and sipped her coffee like someone with time. No phone, no book, just the window, the cup, and the hush around her. She stayed for maybe 20 minutes. Then she stood, wrapped the umbrella in its strap, and with one last glance at the window, she placed it softly against the inside edge of the booth and walked out. I watched her go. She didn't look back. She didn't forget anything. She left it deliberately. And for the first time, I felt something different rising beneath the mystery, not confusion, not even curiosity, but tenderness. As if the umbrellas weren't a message, as if they were a gift. It was the yellow one. I took the one with white stripes that looked like sunlight folded into fabric. It had been sitting in the corner booth for 3 days by then, untouched, leaned carefully just as it had been left. The staff moved around it, cleaned the table, wiped the window, but they never picked it up. I'd watched it every day, wondering if this would be the moment someone would return for it, maybe explain something, offer a reason for why these umbrellas appeared like clockwork and vanished without ceremony. But no one came. So, on a softly raining Saturday, when the cafe was quiet and the clouds sat low on the street outside, I stood from my usual seat, walked to the booth, and gently reached for the umbrella. It felt strange at first, like I was interrupting something that wasn't mine, but the moment my hand closed around the handle, I was surprised by how natural it felt. Not like stealing, not like taking, more like accepting, like picking up something that had been quietly left for someone to notice. It was light in my hand, and when I opened it just slightly, I saw a small tag stitched into the inside of the fabric. Not a name, not a brand, just a single word, hand embroidered in tiny thread. Shelter. I didn't know what it meant. Maybe nothing, or maybe everything. I closed it again and slipped it under my arm as I left, nodding politely to Mark at the counter, who gave no reaction, as if it was the most ordinary thing in the world to walk out with something you didn't come in with. Outside, the rain was light and cold and surprisingly kind. I opened the umbrella and walked slowly, letting it carry me down streets I hadn't planned to take, and under its yellow shelter, the world looked a little softer, a little less uncertain, not changed exactly, just noticed. When I got home, I dried it off and leaned it beside the door. It didn't feel like mine, but it didn't feel like a stranger's either. It felt like something found, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I kept looking at it through the evening, the way its handle curved gently against the wall, the way the fabric caught the light. I didn't open it again that night. I just let it sit there, quietly, as if it were still waiting. Not for someone, just for whatever came next. I waited until the next Wednesday to return the umbrella, not because I had to, but because something about the rhythm felt important to honor. I carried it with care, wrapped in a soft cloth more out of instinct than necessity, and when I walked into the cafe that late afternoon, the place felt exactly as it always did. Warm, steady, familiar in the way only places that ask nothing of you can be. Mark nodded from behind the counter, as if I were just another shadow slipping in with the rain. The booth in the corner was empty again, the window beside it already beaded with water, the glass diffusing the soft gray light into a kind of hush that settled over the tables like a blanket. I didn't sit right away. I walked slowly toward the booth, heart quiet but attentive, and placed the umbrella down on the seat just as it had been left before. I didn't write a note. I didn't mark it as returned. I simply offered it back, hoping the silence would carry its own meaning. I sat at my usual table near the back and waited, not for anything specific, just to see if the air would shift. For a while, nothing happened. I sipped my tea. I watched the steam curl upward and disappear into the light. And then, just before 5, the door opened. I looked up, but it wasn't the same woman. This time, it was a man, maybe in his early 40s, with tired eyes and a navy coat slightly too large for him. He walked to the counter, ordered a black coffee and a single biscotti, then walked without looking around straight to the corner booth. My breath caught a little, not with surprise, but with recognition. He sat quietly, carefully, and reached down to move the yellow umbrella to one side. He didn't touch it like it was his. He touched it like it was meant to be there. After a few sips of coffee, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper, no envelope, and tucked it gently beneath the umbrella's strap. Then he stood, nodded once to no one in particular, and left. I waited. I wasn't sure if it was meant for someone else, but eventually, curiosity and something deeper pulled me toward the booth. The note was still there, small, folded twice. I hesitated, then picked it up and opened it. The handwriting was clean but soft, like it had been written slowly, without rush. It said, "For anyone who needed something to hold on to, even just for a little while." That was all. No name, no hint of origin. I sat back in the booth and stared at the umbrella beside me. Not the same one I'd taken, I realized. This one was striped navy and cream, slightly worn, carefully placed. I didn't take it. Not yet. I just sat there for a while longer, letting the meaning of it settle not like an answer, but like a gentle hand placed quietly on the shoulder. "You're not alone," it seemed to say, "and it's okay to rest here, if you need to." I didn't go back the next day, or even the one after that. I let the note sit with me, folded carefully on my desk beside the windowsill where the light drapes itself in the late afternoon. I read it a few more times, not looking for new meaning, just letting the words breathe for anyone who needed something to hold on to, even just for a little while. I thought about that phrase more than I expected to. It stayed with me in quiet places while doing dishes, waiting for water to boil, folding socks. And one evening, As rain tapped softly against the glass, I opened the small drawer beside my bed and pulled out an object I hadn't touched in years. A brass key, slightly dulled with age, its notches worn smooth in places from a pocket it no longer lived in. It had belonged to the storage unit I used to share with someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. The unit was gone now, cleared out, paid off, emptied of its echoes, but the key had stayed. I never really knew why. I held it in my palm for a while, turning it over with slow fingers, and then wrapped it in a folded scrap of linen. The next Wednesday, I arrived at the cafe near closing time. Mark looked tired but kind, like always. I ordered tea, then made my way to the corner booth. No one had taken the striped umbrella. It leaned calmly in its usual spot. I slid into the booth, drank half my tea, then reached into my pocket and placed the small bundle on the table. I didn't leave a note. I didn't feel the need to explain. I just set it down, gently, like one more piece in a conversation that didn't require voices. The key wasn't meant for anyone specific, just for someone who might need the feeling of unlocking something. Maybe a metaphor, maybe not. As I left, I paused by the door and looked back. The booth sat in its soft puddle of lamplight, quiet and unchanged. And yet, I felt different. Not lighter exactly, but less curled in on myself, like the act of leaving something you'd carried long after it had served its purpose, made a little more room inside you. That night, I walked home without an umbrella. Even though the rain had returned, I let it touch my face. I let it remind me that I was still here, still moving, still capable of letting go. I started to notice the changes slowly, like the way you notice the days getting longer without realizing spring has begun. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden crowd, no bulletin board of messages, no acknowledgments exchanged between tables, just subtle things. One Wednesday, there were 2 umbrellas, one propped against the usual booth, another folded carefully near the bookshelf, left as if it had simply decided to rest there for a while. Another evening, I saw a small box tucked behind the napkin holder, wooden hand-painted, with a faded image of a lighthouse on the lid. It wasn't hidden, but it wasn't placed to be obvious either. When I lifted the lid, I found a single seashell inside, not polished, not decorative, just a soft, natural curl of white and gray, the kind you'd pick up and turn in your palm for a while, maybe carry in your pocket for no reason except that it made you feel something. There was no note, no label. I didn't take it. I just held it briefly, then closed the box and left it where it was. Over time, more objects appeared. A dried flower pressed inside a book no one read, a paper crane on the windowsill, a button in the shape of a star, all small, all quiet. And each time I found one, I felt the same thing, that gentle tug of shared presence, like someone had passed through the same stillness I had and left behind a trace of it. I never saw anyone place them. And yet, something in the timing felt intentional. It was as though we were all moving through the same soft rhythm, not coordinated, not spoken, just quietly offering. Some weeks I left something, some weeks I didn't. Once, I left a page torn from an old novel I'd loved in my 20s with a line circled in pencil. You won't always know where you're going, but you'll know when something feels like home. The next week, it was gone. In its place was a folded handkerchief with a stitched leaf on the corner, not mine, not new, but placed as if it had something to say. I took it home, not as a prize, but as a continuation. I didn't know who else was doing it. I never tried to find out. That wasn't the point. The point was that something quiet had begun to stitch itself between strangers, not connection in the way we usually speak of it, but something softer, a thread maybe, or a shared breath. The kind of thing you don't have to understand to believe in. It had been raining all morning, the kind of soft, steady rain that makes the world feel hushed, as if even the sky has been invited to slow down. By the time I reached the cafe, the windows were fogged slightly, softening the view inside like an old photograph. I pushed open the door, greeted by the familiar scent of coffee and something faintly sweet, and gave a quiet nod to Mark, who offered a knowing smile but didn't say a word. The place was nearly empty, just one older man near the back, with a crossword puzzle and a young woman reading something in a foreign language by the window. The corner booth was empty, but as I approached, I noticed something on the table. A small envelope, plain and cream-colored, weighted down by a smooth river stone. No markings on the outside, no name, just waiting, like all the umbrellas and seashells and folded cranes that had come before. I sat across from it for a while, sipping my tea, pretending I wasn't there for it, but I was. I reached out slowly and lifted the stone, then opened the envelope with care. Inside was a piece of thick, textured paper, folded in half, and a message written in small, gentle handwriting that felt familiar, though I knew I'd never seen it before. It read, "You don't have to explain the things you carry. You don't have to be fixed to be held. If you've ever left something behind, know this: someone saw it. Someone understood." That was all. No signature, no instructions, just that soft truth laid bare like an open hand. I held the paper for a long while, the words sinking into me like the light through the window, slow, warm, without urgency. I didn't know who had left it, but I knew it had waited for me. Not because I was special, but because I had shown up week after week, quietly, curiously, with the willingness to notice. I folded the note and tucked it into the inside pocket of my coat near my heart. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the need to leave anything behind. Not because I had nothing to offer, but because something had been given, and sometimes the most honest thing you can do is receive it fully. That night, when I returned home, the rain was still falling, and I let it. I walked slowly, without my umbrella, thinking about how many things we carry quietly, and how sometimes, just sometimes, the world offers a quiet mirror in a booth, in a stone, in a single line written by a stranger to remind us that we're not carrying them alone. It was a clear day, the first in weeks, the sky wide and open, the kind of soft blue that doesn't try to impress you, just gently reminds you that light is still there, even when you've forgotten how to look for it. I wasn't sure I would go to the cafe that day. There had been something complete about the note, like a page turned not with finality, but with fullness. Still, my feet led me there in the way they sometimes do, without planning, without resistance, just a slow arrival. When I stepped inside, the light was different, sharper, but not harsh, honest. The place was almost empty, the hum of the espresso machine in the background, Mark humming something tuneless as he wiped the counter, The corner booth was unoccupied, just the sun settling softly over the table and the seat cushion still bearing that slight dip where so many had quietly. Saturday, I didn't expect anything to be there, and there wasn't. No umbrella, no paper crane, no folded note held down by a stone, but that emptiness didn't feel empty. It felt still, like the silence after a long conversation with someone who truly listened. I sat down anyway, letting the warmth of the sunlight touch the back of my hand on the table. I didn't bring anything to leave behind. I didn't need to. It wasn't about the objects, in the end. It was about the space we'd all quietly tended together, without names, without acknowledgement, just the slow human act of caring, a little place in the world where things could be left and found without judgment, where stories didn't need beginnings or endings, only presence. I stayed there for a while, long after my tea had gone lukewarm, just breathing in the simple peace of it all. And when I stood to leave, I placed my palm gently on the tabletop, not as a gesture, not as goodbye, but simply to feel the surface of something I had come to love. As I turned toward the door, Mark looked up and offered me a faint smile, the kind that says nothing and everything all at once. Outside, the air smelled faintly of spring. I didn't open an umbrella. I didn't carry anything. But I walked away feeling full, like I was taking something with me that couldn't be held in hands, just quietly known. A kindness shared, a rhythm kept, and somewhere I like to think someone else was sitting down for the first time, wondering about a folded note or an umbrella or a shell, and the circle would continue without noise, without endings, just a soft human echo.